There's a version of you that only exists before 9 a.m. Careful, deliberate, someone who actually knows the difference between wanting something and needing it. By nighttime, that version is gone, and the strange part is you didn't choose to let them go. The day used them up, quietly, in increments too small to feel like costs. You've been there, the morning where you said no to the expensive coffee, ignored the sale email, closed the tab without thinking twice. By 9 p.m., you're staring at a confirmation email for something you don't fully remember deciding to buy. And the thought that follows is always the same: I have no willpower. But that's not what happened. That's not even close to what happened. Here's what no one is telling you about your spending habits. The most expensive purchase you make isn't the one that appears on your credit card statement. It happens before you touch your wallet, before you open a single app. It bleeds from an account most people don't know exists, and it runs dry every single day, in the same predictable sequence, at the same hour, with the same result. By the time most people sit down at night, that account has been at zero since mid-afternoon. What drains it, what protects it, and what rebuilds it, that's what this is actually about. There's a concept in behavioral psychology that researchers spent decades trying to quantify, and when they finally did, the results were uncomfortable enough that most people quietly chose to ignore them. The human brain has a finite capacity for making decisions, not willpower exactly. Something more mechanical, more like fuel, measurable, depletable, and not always replenished by rest alone. Every choice you make, whether to respond to that message now or later, which lane to take, what to eat, whether that notification deserves a second of your attention, burns a small, real amount of that fuel. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. The decisions that drain fastest aren't the significant ones. It's not "should I change careers" that empties the tank. It's the 47 micro-choices that happened before breakfast, the 3 apps that surfaced recommendations you never requested. The commute through a corridor of stimuli architecturally designed, and that word is not metaphor, by other people to extract a decision from you. Every single one of these is a quiet withdrawal. Every single one costs something you didn't agree to spend. And the receipt only shows up at night, in the purchase history, in the cart you don't remember filling. The Stoics had a word for what they believed was the highest form of discipline, and it wasn't endurance. It wasn't grinding through discomfort or white-knuckling through temptation. It was subtractio. Deliberate subtraction, the removal of complexity before complexity could demand a choice. Marcus Aurelius didn't write about how to resist desire. He wrote about constructing a life where desire had fewer points of entry. Seneca didn't preach willpower. He described simplifying the environment until temptation had fewer surfaces to land on. They understood something that modern financial culture still refuses to accept. You cannot outspend your environment. Not in discipline, not in intention, not in the most sincere morning conviction you've ever felt. Because the environment charges first, before you're awake enough to object. Researchers who study long-term spending patterns found something that quietly dismantles the whole narrative around financial self-mastery. People who consistently live below their means don't report having stronger discipline than people who chronically overspend. What they report is simpler. Fewer involuntary daily decisions, less environmental friction, routines structured so that the hardest choices are already made before the depleted hours arrive. Not character architecture. The person who never impulse buys isn't resisting more than you. They're encountering fewer checkout buttons at the exact moment their decision fuel runs lowest. And that timing, that specific collision between a depleted mind and a perfectly placed opportunity to spend, is rarely accidental. In many cases, it is deliberately, precisely engineered. Frugality is not a morning virtue. Read that again, because this is where the entire framework shifts. Real, sustained frugality, the kind that actually accumulates into financial freedom, is an environmental output. It isn't something you generate through effort. It's something your surroundings either produce or prevent. The person whose spending habits seem effortlessly disciplined doesn't wake up with more resolve than you. They live in an environment with fewer toll booths. Yours has more. And every toll booth you pass between waking and night charges something, even when you're not aware you're paying. What does a toll booth look like inside a modern life? This is where most conversations about intentional living stay frustratingly vague, so let's be specific. It's the notification system that defaults to surfacing things you interacted with once, because someone else's financial interest depends on your attention becoming a decision. It's the subscription you kept because canceling requires a phone call, so you paid again. It's the browser tab you've had open for 11 days that slowly graduated from curiosity to desire to purchase without you ever making a single deliberate choice. It's the app that reduced checkout to one tap, specifically because 2 taps introduced enough friction that people reconsidered. It's the limited time framing on something you didn't know you wanted until the countdown started. The recommendation engine that knows your depleted hours better than you do. The feed that never ends, not because there's always something worth seeing, but because stopping requires a decision, and decisions cost fuel. None of these are accidents. None of them are organic features of a world indifferent to your spending habits. They are architectures, deliberately designed to find you at your lowest and extract a choice you'd never make at your highest. Here's the part that most people don't let themselves sit with long enough to feel. The companies behind these systems understand the decision bank account better than most individuals ever will. They know exactly when it's lowest. They've mapped the hours, the emotional states, the behavioral signatures of depletion. And they allocate extraordinary resources, ensuring their moment of contact happens precisely when your reserves are gone. You are not failing at willpower. You are navigating an architecture that was built to make that navigation feel like personal failure. And no one told you to redesign yours. So what does intentional living actually look like when you strip away the aesthetics, the clean surfaces, the capsule wardrobes, the morning rituals? It looks like an audit, not of your spending, of your withdrawals. The question that changes everything isn't, where did my money go? It's, where did my decision fuel go before my money ever had a chance? Run through yesterday, not the purchases, the decisions, the ones that pulled focus before noon, the notifications you had to evaluate, the choices about choices, the micro-commitments your environment extracted before you'd even eaten. If you count more than 40 before midday, and most people do, most days, your evening financial decisions were not made by the version of you that started the morning. They were made by what was left, and what was left didn't budget. It defaulted to whatever the environment had positioned in front of it. Real financial minimalism isn't about owning fewer things. That's the surface version, the aesthetic without the engine. The real version is this: making fewer involuntary decisions before the decisions that cost you money. Protect the fuel, remove the toll booths. Design your environment for the 9 p.m. version of yourself, not the 7 a.m. version who's already left. Simple living at its foundation is a cognitive defense strategy, not a lifestyle preference, not an aesthetic. A deliberate architectural choice to reduce the number of exits the environment has into your decision-making capacity, so that when money enters the picture, it's still you making the call. When this clicks, really clicks, something changes in how you move through a day. You stop measuring your discipline and start measuring your environment. You stop asking, why did I spend that? And start asking, what was I navigating in the hours before I got there? The answer is almost always the same, and once you see it, you cannot spend money the same way again. Not because you've become more disciplined, because you've become intentional about what gets to make demands on you before money enters the picture at all. There's one more layer to this that we haven't touched, and it may be the most important one. The toll booths we've mapped are external, visible once you know where to look. But there's a category of decision drain that operates entirely from within: unresolved commitments, mental loops running in the background, the choices you are not making, which, it turns out, cost exactly as much as the ones you are. That's a different kind of architecture, and it requires a different kind of subtraction.